Well, Africa's wildlife is one of its most precious natural resources. When Ndimyake Mwakalyelye joins us now with the latest on what's being done to protect it. Demi.
Well, thank you, Vincent. Yes, Africa's elephant population is under dire threat due to poaching. But in Kenya's northern Samburu region, an unlikely ally has come to the rescue to defend elephants against poachers.
Koyaso often stays up all night. When there's enough light, he heads into the bush. He's been living in the shadows and tracking elephants in this region of northern Kenya for as long as he can remember. Often he'd spend a month following a single elephant in order to do one thing: kill it for its ivory.
Whenever we saw an elephant in the bush, we would stalk it and then shoot it.
After 10 years of hunting, Koyaso's prey has now changed. Along with these Samburu warriors, he's now out to catch the poachers themselves. Untrained and unpaid, they patrol for 2 hours in the early morning and say they have already caught several poachers. Once they've proved themselves, they hope to get jobs with the local wildlife conservancies.
I cannot cope with the poacher's life anymore, because it always ends in death.
In fact, 40 poachers were shot dead in Kenya last year. Wildlife conservancies in this region have teamed up to form a rapid response unit, a heavily armed force that camp out in a different area each night and patrol by foot and 4x4 across the terrain. Well trained, they know where to look for poachers.
Poachers come to the riverbed because all the elephants come here to drink.
Kenya's anti-poaching effort is one of the most successful in East Africa, but still 385 elephants were killed for their tusks in 2012, a dramatic increase on previous years and the highest number since the last poaching crisis in the late 1970s. And in this region, 85% of the elephants that died last year were poached, all driven, say conservationists, by the huge, insatiable demand from China.
Having been through these holocausts before, I have to be optimistic that it can be turned around. And it can be turned around quickly by change in human attitude. And if we can get that amongst the buyers, if they realize the damage they're causing, it could stop. If the buying stops, the killing can too.
There is still a small legal trade in ivory, but it's badly policed, so it provides a cover for traders to offload illegal tusks. Conservationists fear that if the current trend continues, elephants could be extinct in Africa within a decade. They want all trade of ivory stopped, but with high levels of poverty and gun ownership in this region, the rewards for killing an elephant remain a huge temptation for the people here.
Now, in an unprecedented move, Monday, as we reported, China, the largest market for illegal ivory, publicly destroyed confiscated elephant tusks as a show of its commitment to stopping the poaching of elephants. And to discuss this further now, we are joined via Skype from Kidebo Valley National Park in northern Uganda by Patrick Bergin, CEO of the African Wildlife Foundation. Thanks for joining us today, Mr. Bergin.
Thanks, Ndimyake. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So your organization obviously applauded China's efforts yesterday. In addition to really saying it's taken a stance against poaching, it's really hoping to curb this activity of poaching. How will this help?
Well, I think in Ndimyake, before Christmas in the last year, we've seen a real escalation of awareness on this issue and a lot of movement in the West. There was President Obama's executive order to get the U.S. government to fight wildlife trafficking. Senator Clinton and Chelsea Clinton have been very active on this issue, trying to raise awareness. But what we really were not seeing was a corresponding action from the East, and particularly from China, which is the greatest market for ivory. So the United States destroyed our ivory stockpiles in November. And I just think it's a wonderful way to start 2014, that the Chinese government has really shown that it's going to be a part of the international community on this issue, joined together with other nations, African nations, the United States, and so forth, and destroying this ivory stockpile. Mm-hmm. And what it really says is there is no future for a trade in ivory.
Now, why is China the largest market for elephant tusks? What do they do with them? And also, why is Africa the source of these tusks?
Well, I think two things. I mean, first of all, of course, China has the world's most people. And then second of all, there is a historic interest and I think art form related to the carving of ivory. And then as far as why Africa is the source, of course, this is where the world's elephants are. About 500,000 elephants, about 500,000 elephants in Africa, with much larger ivory than the Asian elephants or the Indian elephants. So I think it is quite correct to say that it is primarily China having an impact on primarily Africa and certain nations in Africa with.
Now, the poaching of the tusks is more to do with decorative pieces as opposed to medicinal practices. Is that so?
The elephant is killed, slaughtered, often very cruelly, merely so that this one small part of the elephant, the two large elongated teeth that we call tusks, can be cut out and sold and shipped to China or to other Asian countries or indeed other parts of the world for processing.
Now, there were efforts back in 2008, I believe, to actually auction the tusks as a way of also dissuading poaching. Did that have any effect? Mr. Bergin, it seems like we've encountered a bit of a problem. We apologize for that. That was Patrick Bergin, CEO of the African Wildlife Foundation. He joined us via Skype from Kidepo Valley National Park in northern Uganda.